You know, it's interesting observing, coming back into Parliament today, you've got a government that's got ascendant numbers. You know, you're in control of the state. You think you'd be buoyed. I've never seen a flatter group of people in my life than the government sitting on the other side of the chamber. Never seen a flatter group. Never seen a flatter group in my life. Never seen a flatter group in my life sitting on the other side of the chamber. And why wouldn't you be flat? Why wouldn't you be flat when you've got the Premier being put in the position to defend this Attorney-General amongst the many incompetent ministers that he's having to carry in his cabinet? You know, the position of Attorney-General, it's not just another ministerial position. I mean, in this chamber, of the many things we do, that one of the most important and lasting things we do is make laws. And the chief law officer in this place is the Attorney-General. That has to be a person who has impeccable credentials, and conducts him or herself in an impeccable manner. What we see from this Attorney-General is anything but that, and no more so than demonstrated in the evidence that he gave in that defamation trial. We need an Attorney-General who is above and beyond reproach. But what we have is an Attorney-General who's treated that court glibly. He's done what he does in this place, and that is he comes in and gives glib answers that don't necessarily reflect the truth or, in fact, what happened, but he gives glib answers because in this place he can get away with it. And he tried exactly that in a court of law. Now, if we go back, this is an Attorney-General who thinks he's above and beyond the law. We only need to look back in February this year, where we had the Attorney-General attend a funeral in the north of this state, and we had an enormous effort, an enormous focus across the whole state to make sure that people wore masks, that people obeyed the mandates. The Premier was again and again on television telling the people of Western Australia that they had to do the right thing. And what do we see? We see an Attorney-General roll up to a funeral, actually participate in that funeral in a vulnerable community, a community that was at high risk of serious consequences of a COVID infection, and not actually even bother to wear a mask. Now, we saw a subsequent mea culpa later, saying, oh, well, the Attorney-General was, he was distracted or whatever. But this is, well, I'll read the whole lot out for you if you want, member. This is the person with the primary responsibility for making laws in this state, a senior member in the Cabinet. And an Attorney-General who says, well, yep, everyone else has to wear masks, but, you know, I'll do what I like when I go along to those things. I won't obey those. I won't obey that rule. And then subsequently we go through the fining of the Attorney-General for $1,000. Now that was an absolute insult to the community, because we had all sorts of threats about people in the community following those rules, but an Attorney-General who said that he didn't have to follow those rules. What we also have seen earlier was the Attorney-General not declaring a gift that he received from someone who was going to be, who had been a person who had been subject to going before a Royal Commission in relation to Crown Casino in Victoria, and there was a high probability that person would be a witness and be a participant in a similar action in Western Australia, that we would see a Royal Commission in Western Australia. And yet this Attorney-General accepted a flight from that individual which was valued considerably above the declaration limit for the minister, and we saw this minister fail to declare that in his return, even when he was reminded about that, failed to declare it in his return of gifts. Now, all he had to do was to do that. And then we have the situation of the Premier having again to defend this Attorney-General, having again to cover up for this Attorney-General, and refusing to answer whether, in fact, the minister had in fact declared that under his ministerial requirements to declare gifts. and that is to Cabinet, or declare that he had any potential conflict of interest in relation to this matter. So again, we have the Premier in a position of having to defend this Attorney-General, and it is an untenable situation. This is, as I've said, the highest law officer in the state, someone who has to be above and beyond reproach. And then we come to the issue that the Leader of the Opposition has already discussed, and that is his performance in the evidence that he gave in relation to the matter before the federal court. And let's go in a little bit of detail, because I do want to cover a little bit of detail of that decision in relation to that particular matter and the evidence that the Attorney-General gave. This wasn't some idle slip of the tongue. I mean, in the heat of the moment, under interjections in this place, some of us may misspeak, some of us may say things. This is an Attorney-General going to the Federal Court of Australia to give evidence, considered evidence. And this Attorney-General, he doesn't just make a slight slip of the tongue. This Attorney-General, in fact, comes through and he says, and I'll go through to 149, where it says, paragraph 149 of the transcript, during cross-examination, Mr Quigley gave contradictory evidence and he accepted that he had said in the interview was indeed to claim that he and Mr McGowan had engaged in a plan, but that the explanation he had given to the public on the radio about those tactics was completely false. He didn't say, look, I'm not quite sure, I can't recall. He gave an unequivocal statement saying that it was completely false. So this isn't some idle slip of the tongue. This isn't someone giving an intemperate response in the heat of the moment in debate in the chamber. This is the Attorney-General giving considered evidence in a court of law. I mean, to conflate that in some way, to say that it relates, to a member here getting up and commencing discussing, a bill, and it was the wrong bill. To conflate those two things together is actually disgraceful. This is a senior matter, but let's go to the evidence that the Attorney-General gave in his second hearing, and this I think is even more disturbing. So this is after the Attorney-General has gone to the first hearing. He's given evidence that is completely wrong in relation to the matter I've just discussed, completely wrong, even though it was a considered matter. If we go to paragraph 152, with respect to Mr Quigley's second appearance in the witness box, I'll read that again. With respect to Mr Quigley's second appearance in the witness box, just added to the broom, which is a fog or a mist, of his testimony, even though his return was at his request for the purpose of correcting mistakes, Mr Quigley misstated his previous evidence. He said he wanted to change. When he was first called, he did not give evidence that he first became aware of the risk of registration on the morning of 12 August. Rather, his evidence had been that he became aware earlier that evening, like 3 in the afternoon, after question time or something like that. Mr Quigley was pressed in cross-examination as just to how long before 11 August he had become aware of the risk of Mr Palmer registering the award, and Mr Quigley repeatedly said he was unable to recall, and so on. I won't read the whole lot, but let's be very clear. So this is the Attorney-General going back into court to correct his previous misstatement, and in fact the evidence he gives there contains misstatements. Do you wonder why on this side we question the suitability of the Attorney-General remaining in his position? This is a law officer who has to be above and beyond reproach. So not only did he give incorrect evidence the first time he appeared in court, but he also gave incorrect evidence the second time he attended court. This Attorney-General does not deserve to stay in his position, and it's time that the Premier has to move on, give someone else the chance so that he's not in the position of having to defend the indefensible.